If you're completely lost with your budget and it never seems to work out, here are a few things that are definitely going to help you. Sometimes we do a budget and we feel like we should have money left over at the end of the month, and then we don't. So let's try to fix that. The first thing that you have to do, even before you make a budget, is track your spending. For the last 2 to 3 months, pull up all of your bank and credit card statements. Track every single dollar that you spent over those last couple months and figure out what categories those go in. Once you've done this, first you're going to see where you're overspending. Second, you're going to be able to make a realistic budget based on what you were actually spending. So you have to track your spending first to figure out what your realistic budget is actually going to look like. When you're doing your budget, you want to break the budget categories down like this. You don't want to have a list of fixed and variable expenses. That is too confusing, but also it's confusing if you have too many columns. This to me is the perfect amount. I'm going to go over this more in just a second. The third thing that you need to do is track the balances of all of your debts and track your net worth. Sometimes people look at their income and say, okay, I have $6,000 in income and I have $5,800 coming out every month. So I only have $200 to pay down debt. This can be discouraging to look at this number alone because that's not the true amount of debt that's being paid off every month. Every time we make a payment to a loan or sometimes to a credit card, if we're careful of our spending, our balances on those are also going down as well. So we need to factor these amounts into this amount. That's going to make you feel a lot better because your debt is going down more than $200 per month. So if you track the balances of your debts, you're going to see how much more you're actually paying off per month. Same thing with your net worth. If you're tracking that, you're going to see it going up a lot more than you thought. So all three of these things are really important. If you feel like you should have money left over at the end of the month and you don't, or if you're just generally working on getting your spending and your budget under control. Now let's look over the budget and I'll show you why I put it in these separate categories here. Your home expenses, usually this is going to be the minimum amount that you're going to be able to get your expenses down to, even if you cut out everything else in your budget. Personally, if you have a car payment, I would put it in the home expenses, but you could also put it in the loans. But this number right here is usually going to be your bare minimum, so that's something that you do want to know. With the loans, we always want those to be in a separate category. That way we can see exactly how much we're paying in loan payments every month. This is really helpful once you pay off a loan to not get yourself back into that situation. Same thing with the credit cards. They need their own column. We need to see what those total minimum monthly payments are. When you look at your budget like this and you have your loans and your credit cards separate, you can add those payments together to see exactly how much is going to your debt payments every month. The miscellaneous and spending column, this column is super important and we have to pay attention to it for multiple reasons. This is usually where the overspending happens. It's not our normal monthly expenses. We already know the payments for those. Those expenses are pretty easy to budget for. This is where we can get messed up. And this is another reason it's super important to track your spending before doing your budget. That way you know what you need to base these numbers off of. And you might be forgetting about some things in this column if you don't track your spending first. And maybe when you track your spending, maybe you're spending $500 a month on shopping, but you want to lower it down to $200. So that would give you a good goal of lowering your spending there. This column is also the easiest column to cut from if anything happens in our budget where we need to free up more money. This is all basically extra spending. You put your food and your gas here. Your out to eat would go in the miscellaneous and spending column. So if you had to, you could cut all of these things out. And if you need to, that's okay. You don't have to cut these things permanently. Maybe just for a couple months, it's really going to help you get on track. But again, it's good to have it in a separate column by itself. Then I would have a column for savings and investments. This is also a column that you can cut from if you absolutely need to. But seeing how much you're putting up is also helpful for your net worth when you're tracking that. And then medical bills, I always put those in a separate column because a lot of times we can call and negotiate the payments lower if we need to on those. So this is why I use those 6 categories. Now, if you have a business or rentals, you may want to add a couple more. But for a normal budget, these are the categories that I like to use. Now, when we're trying to decide how we're going to pay off debt, remember if you're paying your credit cards off first, that's going to help your credit score the most. But if you're someone who doesn't feel like they have their spending under control, you might want to consider paying off your loans first. Once you make a payment to the loans, you cannot spend that money back like you could on a credit card. Another thing to look at with the loans specifically is the balances that you owe on the loans. So maybe loan number 1 here, the balance is $7,000. And then maybe loan number 2, you've been paying it for a long time. So the balance on it is only $2,500. So you could go in and pay off $2,500 to free up $600 of a monthly payment that you're making every month. If you're working to pay down debt or lowering your monthly expenses, that would be one of the first things I look at. Do you have any loans with a lower balance that's going to free up a large monthly payment for you? In this case, if we added $600 back into the budget, we could put it into savings here. We could pay extra to the credit cards up here. Could maybe spend a little bit of it if we wanted to, but freeing up a large payment can be really helpful if you have the money to pay off the loan. I'm not going to go over velocity banking with the credit cards, but we all know that that is an option as well. This can help you free up additional cash flow by basically eliminating your monthly payments on your cards. But that is difficult to do if you're overspending. But again, if you feel like you're not budgeting correctly, breaking it down into these categories is really going to help. And remember, you need to do these things as well. So track your spending first before you start making a budget to figure out what you're actually spending. Then you base your budget off of those numbers that you tracked. This is going to give you a realistic budget, which is going to be a lot easier to stick to. And then every month you want to track your total debt to see how fast it's going down. And you also want to track your net worth to see how fast that's going up. Both of these things here can help a lot with keeping you motivated to continue to pay things off. And again, your balances are going down a lot faster than you think they are. Because every time we make a loan payment, those balances are getting lower. You might forget that because you're just used to making the monthly payments. You may be making those payments for a while, but those balances are going down. You can do all of these things on paper. I'm also going to put a link in the description for my 4 spreadsheet bundle. It includes all of these plus a credit utilization chart for helping you pay off your credit cards. So this is where I would start if I was struggling with my budget, or if I thought that I was supposed to have money left over at the end of the month and I don't end up with as much as I thought I would. But I'm telling you right now, if you break your budget down into these categories, it's going to make so much more sense and you're actually going to see where your money is going. But anyway, as always, let me know if you have any other questions about budgeting, debt payoff, credit cards, velocity banking, credit scores, or anything else.